On the 2nd of December 2025, WION held the third season of its flagship initiative, Mission Sustainability. No action, not an option, in New Delhi.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Namaskar. A very warm welcome to the third edition of WION Mission Sustainability Summit.
The on-ground event brought together visionaries, policymakers and innovators to address the most challenging environmental concerns of our times. The day-long program focused on driving impactful discourses around climate resilience and sustainable development. A panel on alternative energy models of sustainability discussed how India is rapidly scaling its solar, wind and hydroelectric power capacities, and that clean energy is no longer just an ambition, it's becoming the backbone of India's growth story. This session dived into how nations are upgrading and innovating their energy infrastructure for a sustainable future. Our esteemed panelists were Kishore Nair, CEO of Avada Energy. Kishore Nair has 4 decades of experience in the energy sector, specializing in business development and project management of large infrastructure projects. Arshibai Kambaria. Arshibai Kambaria is the MD and CEO of Opera Energy, which has been executing renewable energy projects from conception to execution for over a decade. Nathan Davis. Nathan Davis is the Trade and Investment Commissioner with Austrade, based in New Delhi.
This session explores how India's energy transition can accelerate through technology, financing, global partnerships, and policy support, especially in solar, wind, green hydrogen, and emerging sustainable industries. Once again, our panel. Welcome them. This question goes to all of you. Is India focusing too much on utility-scale solar and ignoring rooftop and distributed renewable energy? We'll start with Mr. Kishore.
Thank you, Eric. I don't agree with that statement. Of course, the utility scale is in focus, but there is a lot of pressure on for promoting the distributed sector, primarily because there is too much of load on the distribution companies for taking the power to the load centers. That's why there's a new scheme which has been launched by the Prime Minister for the rooftop, that is Surya Ghar Yojana, which is 10 million of rooftops to be set up.
Storage or hydrogen, which will matter more to India's energy future in the next decade? Mr. Kambaria.
Right now, the storage is a major key role playing in the energy segment, but hydrogen scale and the consumption of the hydrogen are right now is very high. So hydrogen going to future major key component of the energy segment.
Mr. Nathan, is renewable energy truly cheaper once you include grid upgrades or storage or even land costs?
Some of the other economic and social costs that aren't attributable to, simple economic and financial models for the decision between renewables and non-renewables. So certainly when you factor in those other economic costs in terms of impact to the environment, impact to health, impact to social equities.
This question goes to Mr. Kishore. India is targeting 500 gigawatts of re-energized energy capacity by 2030. From Avada's vantage point, what are the top 3 constraints slowing projection or project execution, which is land availability, grid, finance, or policies?
Even though government has got a lot of policy initiatives that is coming up, but the major issue what I'm finding is the load creation. So today when we are talking about the power purchase agreements are not getting signed, what the government needs to do is to create the load. There is a projection by the Central Electricity Authority which has given on year projection of the load increase. So we talked about how do we increase the load. One is that industrialization. So the government of India has come up with the Make in India policy where they are expecting that the manufacturing sector will pick up, which certainly needs the power. So that is one major area. So EV is one major area where you can shift some of the large loads which will come in the daytime, and that the RE energy can be used for the EV sector. The load creation is primarily the area, and AI is something which we are talking about, and the data centers which are expected to be huge source of RE energy for the data centers. So these are some of the policy initiatives that the government need to push so that the RE energy will certainly get a big push.
Because governments world over keep their promises every year. We've always heard about 2030. We're now hearing about 2047. We are now hearing about 2050. I don't know if some of us will be there, or the generation. I don't know what generations they're talking about. So that's what we are going to demystify. Mr. Kambaria, Opera Energy operates in an increasingly competitive solar renewables market. We've talked about renewable markets and solar. What technology and cost innovations will define the next decade?
Earlier, the solar was the major one technology. India renewable energy journey start from near about 1919. That time, the major generation in the renewable side are coming in hydro and solars. Then after, the wind will come on a key player because of the economic viability and the gap of the generation performance. Majority projects and majority energy investment are going into wind and solar hybrid, where the similar cost of the transmission and evacuation infrastructure, we can utilize the we can produce the major generation on same cost. But still there are some disadvantages like that, grid sustainability, timing of the generation. So compatible with this segment is coming with a battery. So wind, solar and battery, if we are going with three segments together, then majorly we can achieve almost 80 to 90% CUF of the utilization of the grid connections.
Mr. Nathan, Australia and India are deepening cooperation in critical minerals, green hydrogen and clean technology. What specific collaboration avenues are underutilized that could be unlocked immediately between the two countries?
First is in the R&D commercialization and then scale up here and manufacture here in India. So we have a number of programs that we've shared between Australia and India under our national science body, CSIRO, our Department of Climate Change and Energy, DQ. They have a number of collaboration projects, which I'll speak to in a bit more detail later, but they have the potential to identify areas of shared challenge between India and Australia to research, and then something that we observe very closely is the ability for India to then manufacture and scale and commercialize those types of technologies. So the ability for India and Australia to immediately do this, because there is that there are already those avenues, and being able to commercialize in a number of areas across solar, hydrogen, batteries, is something that I'm really observing quite closely.
My question to the three of you: what's one environmental policy or initiative from recent years by this government in India that you think had a genuinely positive impact on India's sustainability journey?
Policy initiative that comes on the enforcement of the obligations by the utilities. So that is something which is really driving the use of RE in the industrial sector.
Do you agree?
Yeah, similar kind with hydrogen also coming in future. So government are maybe issue very soon that notification that at least 10% green hydrogen must be used with industries.
Solar pledge, because Australia is a massive uptake user of rooftop solar, so we have a lot to offer there. So I think that sort of ambition of 10 million rooftop solar panels by 2027, I think that that's a fantastic initiative, frankly.
My second question to the three of you: We see a lot of debates around air pollution sources, vehicles, industries, stubble burning. According to you, what's the most misunderstood aspect of smog in India?
India believes, or rather at least Delhi believes, that the stubble burning in Punjab is the real cause of pollution for Delhi. But what I believe is the industrial pollution and the transportation sector. These are the major pollutants for the smog that is happening in the NCR region.
Industrial and transportation, that can have very option of the green segment, so government has to do some more initiative.
There's certainly a number of global cities that have faced very similar challenges, and this is within the power of industry within government to support the pathway out of smog-filled territories.
Biofuels sound promising, but how will they impact the life of regular vehicle owners and also benefit the environment? Mr. Kambaria.
Human and public, the biofuel still is not fully mature in India as per me. So people are more using, and companies are doing some R&D and make it economically viable, then it will be a good option right now.
Is biofuels some of the discussions in Australia and in the Western world as compared to the evolving world?
Multiple nations, both West and developing, would need an array of sources to support its renewable energy future. So biofuels absolutely is part of the conversation in that mix, and there's a number of promising Australian companies that are looking to do some really enterprising things in that space, for sure.
Mr. Kishore, you're very passionate about biofuels. Maybe you can explain to our viewers and our audience how important this aspect is.
Biofuel is certainly going to be the future sustainable fuel that's going to be used in the vehicles, whether it is surface transport or the aviation fuel. One area that we are still finding it a constraint is availability of the feedstock for the biofuel. There is no guarantee of a sustainable supply of the biofuel. That is something which still need to be looked, the feedstock that still need to be looked at. How do you make sure that the feedstock is available readily for the biofuel? So, but certainly it is going to be the future and alternative sources of fuels.
I think I'll ask my audience now. If they have any critical question that they want to ask my panel, you're welcome to do so.
This is a question to all dignitaries. Good evening, all. Sir, what do you think after India will be 15 years, especially in green energy? And what kind of support you needed from the government?
Policy is a key part of any segment, particularly in solar, wind, or green energy, or green hydrogen, or anything. The policy and government infrastructure, that is a basic need of anything. So that is the major role which government have to play for the secure our target of 500 gigawatt in 23.
Today we have a problem of excess solar energy that is coming in the daytime, and that is a real problem today. And if you look at the energy exchange, you can see there are instances where the energy cost in the exchange was less than 50 paisa. And today, if you look at the normal range of energy in the daytime is roughly about 1.5 to 2 rupees, and there are no takers. In most of the cases, there are no takers of the daytime energy. We have surplus daytime energy. So the problem today is that how do we cope up with this surplus solar energy in the daytime and consume it in the evening peak time in the exchange is, at times it goes to 10 rupees, which is the ceiling. And in most of the cases, it is hovering in the range of 8 to 10 rupees. So the answer is that how do we make storage as part of our energy balancing? If you can store the surplus energy into a battery storage or any other forms of storage and use that in the evening power, in the evening peak, so that the same grid infrastructure is used for sending out the power in the evening peak. So this is one of the major policy shift is happening.
Certainly, the ambitions are there, the goals that I already discussed about at a very high level for the renewable energy targets from rooftop solar, from national hydrogen mission. But then the next layer down about operationalization and being able to, work with private sector, as these gentlemen have just mentioned, to really, create the economies of scale required to be able to create the type of infrastructure necessary, particularly when we talked about grid management, when we talk about batteries. It's sitting in behind. The renewable energy generation is absolutely there, but without, the ambition is there, but not without the necessary requirements for transmission lines, grid management technologies, and battery to certainly reduce economies of scale required.
How do you deal with land and the land requirements for these renewable energies? Because I know that, for example, solar, you mentioned the agricultural use, so you can actually double it down and grow it. But other things, for example, biofuels, they require actually things that we might otherwise use to grow food. So how do we deal with these kind of trade-offs of the land limitation for some of these energies?
In a renewable energy, right now, already I think we are achieving to the land crisis, because the project size and the investment sizes are coming very huge. So many people are bidding the tender and winning the tenders. Everyone have a big pipeline like a 10 gigawatt, 30 gigawatt, but actual execution of the project is very less, and majority projects are going to delay just because of the land and local issue. They are the very key role in this segment. Majority government are already supporting for the issuing the government land on a lease basis, but the private sector land price are going very high, and on that price the viability of the project are coming very less. So alternative option for that, in a wind sector we can move to offshore, but in a solar we have not much option for that. Either we can do floating solar or something, but that are the very small market compared to the onshore solar projects. So land is a key and a major part. That's why Indian government has given one mission, that one sun, one earth, one grid. That means some countries has land benefits, some countries has power demand. So if all countries are connected on the one grid, then that land can be used to supply power of the consumption of the other countries.
Just to be clear, land availability is not a problem just specifically for India. It's a problem world over, because I know some countries, when you speak about renewables, when you speak about energy, the land question, and especially in African states and African nations, that's a big problem.
Yeah, so it's an enormously complex issue, and certainly something that a lot of Australian businesses that I've looked to support here and also hearing their stories back in Australia have looked to grapple with. I think some of the innovative solutions that I mentioned just before were, are certainly part of it. Some of the solutions that I've seen, say, down in the state of Karnataka, I've seen some wonderful solutions about use of solar panels across dual use areas, if it's, agricultural land, if it's across water reservoirs, these sorts of things. Certainly offshore wind as well as a similar method to, better overcome land issues attached to renewable energy generation. I still think that there's more to do, and there's certainly more to come. And I'm seeing new innovations every day about how to overcome land access issues as well. There's an Australian company who's looking to do very innovative drone transmission tethering, which is able to sort of mitigate some of the land access issues and land requirements needed for the simple transmission lines. There's a lot of different opportunities for innovation to sort of come into the piece to not only create new ways to generate energy, but overcome the land issue, because as I say, it's enormously complex, even in a country like Australia where there is a lot of land there.
Mr. Plogman, I heard that you had a question for my panel.
The term that I was looking at was the food versus the fuel conflict, because biofuel, I mean, one of the sources is the waste and the stubble, right? But unfortunately, as we push towards biofuel, a lot of the biofuel will also come from crops, the push towards crops. And that will lead to a lot more land than what biofuel was initially imagined and reimagined for. So that was what my primary question was, the food versus fuel conflict, and that might just increase as we push towards biofuel. That is what I was looking for.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely an interesting challenge, and one, I guess, a lot of sort of agriculture-dominated countries like Australia and India will look to share. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity there, which is my positive spin on that. I think the solution is, well, not to be too prescriptive, but I think it's mixed modal. I think that there are opportunities in the biofuel space to be able to, you know, if you're looking at increased efficiency in the generation of biofuel, that's one potential area. But I guess the actual ag tech solutions that could also be developed for some of the use of agricultural land and the development of crops and the burning of crops and the use of crops is another thing that I guess Australia is also grappling with, and we've got a couple of solutions that we're working with Indian farmers on. But I don't think that there's a one-size-fits-all solution, and I certainly think that it's another challenging space.
So let's talk about what happens ahead, looking ahead, and what needs to be discussed, how it should be discussed. What I'm talking about is looking ahead and identifying actionable next steps, not only for India, but for the world over. How can middle powers like India and Australia collaborate more effectively on critical minerals, batteries, and value chain security to support global green industry? Nathan, go first.
Yeah, so there's a few different ways that we've been looking to identify, I guess, going to the heart of it, right? And so that's both approaching it from a perspective that, you know, not just having banal platitudes decided between governments, but also then how do we operationalize that through the industry lens? And there's a couple of things that I point to. So I referenced earlier that our national science body, CSIRO, has developed a tech commercialization challenge. In fact, they were just here last week, which utilizes, I guess, the best and brightest from some of our leading institutions who have spoken directly with Indian institutions to understand areas of, say, solar PV, batteries and hydrogen, and what are the types of solutions that we could develop there. So I think you know, one of the ways that we've been able to successfully identify that is speaking directly from what can the innovation tell us to I guess provide solutions or opportunities for further collaboration directly to the challenge, not just understanding at scale, it's a renewable energy piece, but understanding what is the innovation that can be scaled underneath that.
Mr. Nathan, thank you very much. India's energy transition is not a dream. It is happening right now on our land, through our companies, and with our people. The models we build today will define the world's clean energy future tomorrow. Thank you very much for being part of this discussion, and thank you to the panel.